before the light was born, before wires hummed and engines breathed, before glass and fire learned to speak to the sea, there was only darkness and a coastline that fed on ships. The cliffs at Whitburn did not announce themselves. They waited. Fog rolled in thick as wool. Reefs lay just beneath the surface, patient and sharp, and the sea kept what it was given. This was a coast that sailors feared long before they named it dangerous. And long before Souter Lighthouse learned how to shine, this place had already learned how to kill. In the early 19th century, the shoreline south of the River Tyne was one of the most treacherous in Britain. Ships came daily, coal carriers, merchant vessels, fishing boats, naval traffic, drawn toward the river mouth like moths toward warmth. And the sea answered them with stone. The reefs of Whitburn steel lay hidden beneath the waves, invisible until it was too late. Storms rose without warning. Fog fell like a curtain pulled tight. In 1860 alone, more than 20 ships were wrecked here. They broke apart within sight of land, within earshot of prayers, within reach of hands that could not save them. The dead washed ashore, the living carried the memory. This coastline earned a reputation, not just for danger, but for inevitability. An average of dozens of wrecks per mile. Year after year, trade faltered, confidence bled away. And beneath it all, there was a growing sense that the sea here wanted something. Long before Souter Lighthouse existed, there was another act of courage written into the waves. In 1838, the passenger ship Forfarshire was torn apart by storms further north. A young woman named Grace Darling, daughter of a lighthouse keeper, rode into chaos and darkness to pull survivors from the sea. She became a symbol of hope, but hope alone could not tame this coast. So plans were drawn, not for oil lamps or flame, but for something new, something bold, something that had never been done before. A lighthouse that would not merely burn, but ignite. On the 11th of January 1871, Souter Lighthouse was lit for the first time, and the night changed. This was not an ordinary beacon. It was the first lighthouse in the world designed from the ground up to run on electricity, alternating current no less. The most advanced technology of its age. Inside its lantern burned a carbon arc lamp, a violent white fire created by electricity leaping across carbon rods. It hissed, it cracked, it roared softly to itself. At full strength, it produced a light of 800,000 candle power, visible for 26 miles. Observers called it one of the most powerful lights in the world. Some locals called it unnatural. The lighthouse did not sleep. To feed that light, the lighthouse needed engines. Steam engines. Boilers hissed day and night. Pistons turned. Magneto-electric generators spun, converting movement into power. Beneath the tower, machinery breathed like a living thing. And when fog rolled in, the lighthouse spoke. At first through reeds, later through sirens, then through diaphones that shook the air itself. One blast, then silence, then another, every 45 seconds, over and over. The sound travelled miles out to sea and miles inland. People miles away reported dreaming of it. Children cried at night when the foghorn sounded. Animals went still. The lighthouse was not just seen, it was felt. To maintain such power, the lighthouse demanded constant attention. Keepers worked in shifts, climbing the tower, tending the light, listening to engines, watching the weather. The great lens was 4.5 tons of glass, floated on 1.5 tons of mercury, allowing it to rotate smoothly. No one thought much of it at first, until the keeper began to change. It happened slowly. Mood swings, restlessness, eyes that no longer slept. The keeper became erratic. He muttered to himself, he scratched at his skin, and he pulled at his hair. Then came the violence. Witnesses later described seeing him in the watchroom, gnawing at his own flesh, tearing at himself, smashing his head against the glass, as if trying to escape something only he could see. One night, a fisherman saw the movement through the lantern windows and ran toward the tower, believing the keeper was under attack. But when help arrived, there was no intruder, only the keeper. He was removed and confined to an asylum, certified insane. Later inspections revealed the cause. Mercury vapour had slowly poisoned his mind beneath the light. The lighthouse had driven him mad. Even now, people speak of the shrill cries heard from the tower when it stands empty, and of a transparent figure seen striking himself before fading into the night. Years passed. Technology changed. The lighthouse adapted. But the atmosphere did not lift. Then came the man known only as John. He arrived quietly. He sat on the grass for hours, staring out to sea. He wandered the paths, and he lingered near the engine room. No one questioned him. The grounds were open. Visitors came and went. But people noticed things. The air felt wrong when he was near. His eyes were dark, not just in colour, but in feeling. One staff member brushed past him and felt something wrap around her. Heavy and cold, like despair, made solid. She turned. His grin was wide. His eyes were black. One morning, he was found dead in the engine room. No wounds, no poison, no explanation. Even the autopsy offered nothing. Some say the lighthouse took him. Others say something already inside it finished the job. For decades now, a figure has been seen on the grounds. Always the same. A tall man, a blue peaked cap, a heavy blue coat with brass buttons, the uniform of 19th century lighthouse keepers. His face is pale, drawn, and exhausted. He walks a few steps, then vanishes. No sound, no disturbance. Those who see him report the same thing. A sudden stillness, as though the air itself has paused to watch. One night, a staff member locking up heard tapping on a window. She turned. The keeper's face stared back at her through the glass, and then, slowly, it faded. There is another presence, lighter and quieter. Some ghosts announce themselves. They knock, they scream, they demand to be seen. Isabella did none of those things. When Isabella Darling first arrived at Souter Lighthouse, she was still young enough to believe that places could be trusted. Her father had accepted the post of lighthouse keeper in 1881, and with him came his family. A small life transported to the edge of land, where grass ended and the North Sea began. To Isabella, the lighthouse was not a warning. It was home. She learned its rhythms before she learned its dangers. The sound of the engines below, the slow, patient turning of the lens, the foghorn's voice rolling across the cliffs like breath. At night, the light passed across her bedroom walls, again and again, a pale sweep that felt almost like a hand checking to see if she was still there. Isabella carried a name that already belonged to history. Her aunt, Grace Darling, had become legend long before Isabella could remember her. The girl who rode into death and pulled life back from the sea. Stories of courage followed Isabella everywhere, spoken softly by adults who never realized how heavy admiration could feel. But Isabella did not want to be brave. She wanted to be quiet. She preferred the gardens. The ground around Souter Lighthouse was harsh, wind-scoured, and salt-fed, but Isabella learned how to coax softness from it. She picked wildflowers from the edge of paths. She knelt in the grass where the lighthouse cast long afternoon shadows. She spoke to the wind as if it were a companion rather than a threat. Visitors later described seeing her there most often. Small hands full of petals, skirts brushing against the grass, her attention fixed on tiny living things that survived where ships could not. The lighthouse loomed above her. Life inside the lighthouse was not gentle. The engines ran day and night. Steam hissed. Metal sang. The air carried the faint but sharp tang of oil and mercury. Isabella's father worked long hours, climbing the tower, tending the light, listening for changes in sound that might mean danger. At times, his eyes seemed distant, as though part of him remained always in the lantern room. Isabella noticed. Children notice these things. She learned early that the lighthouse demanded something from those who served it. There were nights when Isabella could not sleep. Not because she was afraid, but because she felt watched. The light swept the room as always, but sometimes it lingered just a fraction too long. Sometimes the foghorn's echo arrived a heartbeat later than it should have. No record marks the exact moment when Isabella's life ended. No dramatic entry into a logbook, no storm, and no shipwreck. Just absence. Later accounts suggest illness. Others whisper of an accident near the cliffs. A slip, a misstep, a moment where the wind pushed harder than expected. There were no cries, no witnesses, only the garden disturbed. Her family left not long after, but the lighthouse continued. Years later, visitors began to notice something. A figure in the gardens. A young woman bending low, her hands moving gently through the grass. She wore clothing out of time. Not theatrical, not dramatic, just wrong for the present. She did not acknowledge those who watched her. She simply picked flowers. Then she vanished. No footsteps away, no fading scream, just absence again. Staff, working late, reported hearing footsteps outside the keepers' cottages. Light, careful, almost polite. When doors were opened, there was nothing there. Some heard humming. Others felt a presence pass by, cool and calm, like someone moving through a room they knew well. No fear followed, only sadness. There are those who believe Isabella is not alone. They believe she waits for her father. The blue-coated keeper seen on the grounds, pale, exhausted, walking short distances before vanishing, is sometimes reported near the gardens just before Isabella appears. Two presences, separate but bound, a family that never learned how to leave. Isabella does not haunt the tower. She does not appear in the engine room, and she does not cry out in the fog. She stays where life once felt simple. The gardens, the paths, the places untouched by machinery. Because ghosts do not always return to where they died. Sometimes they return to where they were happiest. If you walk the grounds of Souter Lighthouse quietly enough, if the wind is low and the sea is calm. You may see her. A girl bending to the grass, hands full of flowers, unaware that the light has gone dark forever. Isabella darling never learned to leave, and the lighthouse, which has taken so much, has never asked her to. In 1988, Souter Lighthouse was decommissioned. The beam went dark. The foghorn fell silent. But silence did not settle. Today, the machinery still stands. The lenses remain. The foghorn can still be sounded on special occasions, and when it is, people swear the air changes. Lighthouses are meant to guide. They are meant to comfort. But some places hold too much memory to ever be empty. Souter Lighthouse did not just save lives. It absorbed them. It watched fear, madness, devotion, and death pass through its walls. And even now, when the light no longer turns, it still keeps watch.